There we go. There's the mic unmuting itself. Hello, everybody. My name is Jesse. I'm your virtual adventure guide here with Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants. And I know we've got some familiar faces in the crowd, but if you are new to us, we are all about bringing conservation, adventure, and science into classrooms around the world through over 500 live free interactive broadcasts every single year. Today, I'm so excited because today we are starting our epic Oceans Week celebration. We have been doing this since our inception, and in partnership with the amazing folks at the Explorers Club, we are bringing you over 20 amazing, incredible programs this week alone. I think we're going to 10 countries. We're featuring some of the coolest scientists and explorers around all of planet Earth. And so a big thank you to them for helping us bring together this very special festival of exciting folks for all of you. We have over 20,000 students signed up for programs this week. So a big welcome. Today we've got Missouri, we've got Illinois, Ontario, New Jersey, Florida, Saskatchewan, and more. It's a really fantastic audience. So a big welcome in to all of you. And you really couldn't be here for a better person to kick off our Oceans Week in Andi Cross. She is the founder of Edges of Earth Expedition. She uprooted her entire life to go to the coolest places on planet Earth to help share the stories of the ocean and the amazing people working to save it. And if that is not a better story as a lead into our Oceans Week celebration, I don't know what is. So I'm not going to steal any more of her thunder. I'm going to turn it over to Andi and say a big hello in Western Australia today. Welcome into the broadcast and your first Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants. It's so nice to have you here.
First one. Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here.
Well, I know you have a lot to share with us today, so let's dive in with your presentation. Apologies to our crowd. We had some internet things, so I'm going to be pressing along with slides as Andi dives in with her incredible life story and more. And so, Andi, without further ado, take us away.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Okay, we can go to the next slide. So I wanted to kick off this combo just telling you a little bit about us and telling you a little bit about the expedition that we're planning, just so you get a bit of context before I dive into some of the insights that I'm going to share. So we can hit it to the next slide. Thank you very much. My team and I are next generation divers going to the most exotic and remote edges of Earth. And our mission is to tell untold stories of impact, conservation, and exploration. And this has been a dream I've been cooking up my entire life, but it hasn't been until this very moment, 35 years later, where it's actually happening. And I'm so thrilled that I get to share this experience with you, because I was sitting in classrooms when I was younger, really wishing and hoping and dreaming that something like this could happen for me. And I had to take a lot of steps to figure out how to get there. I didn't really have a lot of people explaining to me how I could make an expedition like this become my reality. And so I'm really excited to share with you some of the learnings that I've had from planning an expedition of this scale. We'll go to the next slide, please. I am not doing this alone. There is no expedition that you can go on by yourself. So I have an incredible team. Myself, I'm leading the charge. I have my partner, Adam, who is from Western Australia. He's heading up equipment, logistics, and safety. Without him, we would not be going on this expedition at all. We have Marla Tamarug. She's from Hawaii. She's our creative director. She's the one who's envisioned our entire branded experience and the way that we're bringing our expedition online. We have Maddie Wilson and Jeff Wilson. They're a partner team based out of Texas. They're content creators, and they're incredible photographers and videographers. They specialize in adventure and exploration. And then last but not least, we have Matilda Bishop. She's from Queensland, and she's our expedition illustrator. I never had access to an ocean growing up. I'm from Philadelphia. I moved to Washington, D.C. for school, and then I lived in New York for most of my life. So I was never spending time in the ocean at all in my early days. And my access to wildlife, marine life, was through illustration. So having Matilda on our team is really special and quite nostalgic to me. Next slide, please. So just to give you a little background as to what our expedition's all about. From March 2023 to January 2025, we are going to 50 of the most remote places on Earth, all centered around scuba diving, free diving, and surfing. And our vision is to make sure that we're meeting people on the front lines of ocean conservation so that we can share the biggest wins happening above and below water. So what exactly does that mean? A lot of the time we hear bad news about our ocean and about our planet, but there's so many people out there who are doing incredible and amazing things to protect our favorite species like the octopus, like the turtle, like the shark. And their stories haven't really been told. So we need to share more of that positive news and those good impact wins with more people so we can celebrate the fact that really amazing things are happening on every edge of the earth. And not to mention, we really want to highlight people who have dedicated their lives to ocean conservation and to the planet because they are inspiration and examples of how we too can contribute as well. So if you're sitting in a classroom and you're dreaming of becoming a marine biologist, we hope to share stories of other people who have done that so you could perhaps connect with them or learn from their experiences and perhaps follow in their footsteps. But it's not to say that ocean is just for marine biologists and scientists. I'm going to get into more of that in a second. Next slide, please. So over the 24 months, we're going to 50 locations all over planet Earth. You can see we have little location marks on every single continent. And we are following large-scale marine aggregations, so where big animals are congregating or even small animals are congregating to mate or to feed or to migrate. We're tracking those big animals because we know that if we follow them, we're going to find really amazing people who are protecting and safeguarding them. But also, we're looking for places that are completely untouched, incredibly remote, and that a lot of people have not had the chance to go to. And we want to prove that if this motley crew of 5, 6 people can start traveling to these places, so can you. Next slide, please. So I want to go back to that point about being a marine biologist or a scientist. You see the picture on the left of me. That's my corporate America photo. I was never good at math or science or biology or any of those topics when I was growing up. I was really good at communicating and talking and dealing with other people. And throughout my journey in classroom and in school, I had been told that because I was on the communications track, I would never have a place in the ocean conservation space. And that was largely true. I was going to school back in early 2000s and I graduated college in 2009. And at the time, there really wasn't a lot of space for people who had different skills other than science or research to get into ocean conservation. But now you see the picture on the right, that's me and how I spend a lot of my time. I'm diving just as much as I'm on land. And so my point is that right now, more than ever, there's so many different career paths and so many different opportunities to become an ocean advocate, an ocean steward, and someone in the ocean conservation space. And you don't have to be a scientist or marine biologist or a researcher to follow in those footsteps. You can do a lot with the skills that you have. So my journey took a really long time. It didn't happen overnight. And I want to share with you a couple insights that I've gained from my time planning an expedition and moving from Manhattan, one of the biggest cities in the world, to Perth, Western Australia, one of the smallest, and what it's like to live on the edges of Earth. Next slide, please. So the first step in planning an expedition is really figuring out what your passion is. And I want to read you this quote because it means a lot to me and it really hones in on the passion of, embracing your passion. Every place we go has a unique set of variables. The farthest corners of the earth seem to be where we figure out what matters most to us. And that's from a movie called Art of Flight. It's about snowboarders and skiers. And it just really hits home for me because my passion has been traveling to the most remote places on earth. And when you figure out what your passion is, you can really start to hone in on what your expedition can look like. But it has to start there. What do you care about the most? What matters most to you? And then how are you going to go chase that dream? Next slide, please. The next step is finding a void. So for us, when we were thinking about our expedition, we wanted to understand what hasn't been done or where is there a gap? What can we do that will make our expedition not only special and interesting, but actually useful to the people that we're meeting with? In our case, we believe there's a content void to fill. So we see beautiful pictures of animals like you see up here, the triggerfish. It's in abundance. We're seeing pixel perfect, beautiful photography of our ocean everywhere. But what we're not seeing as much is how humans like us are spending time in and around the ocean. We're not hearing enough stories of people on the ground in these remote places and what they do every single day to protect our planet. So our content void that we're going to fill is bringing more connectivity between humans and ocean and showing that it's possible for anyone to be an explorer. Next slide, please. The next step is crafting your vision. So once you know what your passion is, and once you know what void you're going to fill, it's really thinking about how you're going to bring your vision to life. What is that really simple way of explaining what your expedition is all about so you can bring that to a wider audience? So for us, we're taking youth audiences on a journey of what it's like for life, what it's like for others on the edges of Earth, opening eyes to potential career paths, alternative ways of living, and how to positively contribute. So that's what our vision is all about. Good news for our ocean. Next slide, please. The next step is to look to the past. There are so many incredible explorers, many of who are part of the Explorers Club, who can inspire us. And for me, I look to the likes of Jacques Cousteau, David Attenborough, Steve Irwin, Anthony Bourdain, these people who've traveled to some of the most incredible places on Earth and who have opened our eyes to what's possible. Jacques Cousteau, for example, has been a longtime hero as he's the master of scuba diving. And it's so important to look at what these people did and how they paved the way so we can figure out how we can. Next slide, please. The next step, step 5, is to validate with our targets. So for us, all of our expedition wouldn't be possible if we didn't have incredible partners that we were teaming up with at these really, really remote sites. So, for example, when we were in Western Australia, our partner was Whale Watch Western Australia, who have paved the way for best practices in whale watching ecotourism. We're actually going to South Australia in 3 days to meet with the Rodney Fox team, who has single-handedly put ecotourism with great white sharks on the map. We're also meeting with the South Australian government to learn more about Australian sea lions, for example. These amazing partners that we're teaming up with are opening their offices, which is the ocean, to us, so we can get a firsthand look at the research and the work that they're doing and help broadly communicate their impact. So without these targets, we wouldn't be able to do the things we're doing. So a really important step is figuring out who you're going to help and who you're going to work with, and understanding what that give-get looks like. What will we give to them, and what will they give to us? Next slide, please. The next step is building a plan. So for us, it's been all about getting our story straight and making sure it's really clear that we have a nice offering that we can bring to our local partners. If we don't have a great value add to our partners, they're not going to want to work with us, and we want to make sure our expedition's successful. So in our case, we've created a media platform that allows us to tap into the channels that we own, like our website and our social media, channels that we've earned through our partnerships, like with Forbes or Oceanographic or Scuba Dive Magazine, and then creating content through that media platform. So you'll see I have little logos here on the left-hand side. These are all of our bigger partnerships that are supporting the entire expedition. They're not just local partners that are supporting us in each location that we go to. So these partners are so important to start working with and bonding with, because they can help elevate and share our message and mission. So building a plan and having a really concrete story allows us to provide quite a bit of value. Next slide, please. This is one of the most important. When you're planning an expedition, you have to make sure that you trial first and foremost, because you learn so much from practicing. So we've had the opportunity to go on 2 trial legs of our expedition and figure out how we're going to best present the ocean good news from those sites. So our first stop was Bremer Bay in Western Australia with Whale Watch Western Australia, like I mentioned. And our second stop was in Malaysia with Scuba Junkie, which is on Malbo Island, which is teeny, teeny, tiny. And so we had the opportunity of really working with those teams to figure out how to craft the best story, how to capture the best content, and how to share the best ocean good news from their teams on the ground. So this trial step is critical. You learn how much gear you need, what you can eliminate, what you can do better, what you missed, what you need to pack. All of those things are so important that you gain from your trial experiences. Next slide, please. The next step is iterating. So like I was saying, when we went on these 2 trial experiences, we started to really learn how to capture the best content, how to tell the best story, and how to work with our local partners. Each local partner that we're meeting with in each of these locations, they have priorities, they have goals, they have a way in which they want their impact story shared, and we need to be very respectful of that process. So we work with those local partners when we deliver writing samples or content like you see here. This slide shows you all the different ways in which we contribute to our local partners. We provide photography, we provide videos, and we provide writing that goes into publications like Oceanographic, Scuba Dive Mag, and Forbes. This is really important to make sure our partners feel extremely comfortable with the content we're producing, we're representing them really well, and we have all the facts straight about the impact work that they're doing above and below the water. Next slide, please. So like I was mentioning, step number 9, aligning with partners. This is so critical. Forming relationships with big names in industry, like the Explorers Club, like the Scuba Dive magazine. This is so important because it allows us to continue to spread messages and make sure that the stories are getting out there to a broader audience. In our case, that's really critical. But step number 9 for anyone planning an expedition is really figuring out who's mission aligned with your vision and your expedition plan, and making sure you forge great relationships with them, because the power of human connection is so key to making an expedition come to life. This is pretty much the crux of a successful successful expedition. So for us, we've been really, really lucky to lock in these partners, and they've been helping us spread the messages as best we can. Next slide, please. So in summary, these are my 10 steps to making sure you can get your expedition or your dream or your big plans off the ground. And the last and most important step is just getting out there and doing it. So as I was sitting in Manhattan for 11 years, I was dreaming of a day that I'd become a scuba diver too. And it wasn't until I turned 30 years old that I finally got in the water. And it was the best decision I ever made, because I could unlock all of these big dreams that I had. But if I continued just staying in my comfort zone, I would have never been able to get in the water and plan an expedition like this. I would have never been able to meet such an incredible team that we're working with. And I would have never been able to be part of the Explorers Club. So my biggest, most important step in all of this is just getting out there and living your dream as early and as quickly as you possibly can. Next slide, please. My final takeaway, and this is probably one of my all-time favorite quotes as well, rival to the first one I gave you. When people start telling you that you're crazy, you might be on the most important innovation of your life. And that's from Larry Ellison. He's the founder of Oracle. And Oracle is one of the biggest companies in the world. What I'm trying to say here is, if you have a big dream and you have a big vision, and some people might be telling you, no, it's too crazy, it's never been done, other people have done this, you shouldn't try it, you should always follow your gut. If you followed those steps that I mentioned before, those 10 steps, and you've really put in the work to make your big vision or your expedition become a reality, just go for it and make sure that you have that experience, because it's probably going to be one of the most valuable and important of your life. And I'll conclude there. I think I managed to stay at 20 minutes, and I'll open the floor up to any questions.
You killed it. You did 15 minutes actually, so even better, which is amazing. So Andi, by the way, David and Steve are my all-time two heroes. I had posters on my wall as a kid, so it's nice to see someone recognize both of those guys in one slide. And 30 as a scuba diver, it's a lot of the people that we bring on, and we always feature this in oceans programs all year. Our kids assume that people grew up on the ocean or in the water, constantly doing this when they're 5, years old. And a lot of the stories that we feature are people that got to it later. And it's something that you can pick up anytime, even if you're in a landlocked place. Most places offer scuba dive training. And it opens up 70% of the world to you, which is one of the great bits of magic on planet Earth. So I hope our students take the call to action there and go out and do it when they're done this broadcast. Andi, we've got a bunch of classes joining us on YouTube, 5 joining us on StreamYard, which is spectacular. So live classes, get ready. I'm coming for Q&A. I'll begin with a question of my own, which is just, is there a first place you're going, and is there a reason that you chose it on this expedition?
Yes. Well, so originally our first place was meant to be Thailand, but I unfortunately had a pretty significant back injury that caused us to cancel the first couple legs of our trip. mainly because I just couldn't walk at all. I've only just recovered. So now technically our first stop is South Australia. And the reason why we're going there is because we're meeting with the leading experts who have spent their whole careers studying great white sharks, leafy sea dragons, which are indigenous only to Australia, Australian sea lions, and it just so happens to be giant cuttlefish mating season when we're going. So we're getting to see the big four that South Australia has to offer, and it's probably one of my favorite and most excited. I'm most excited to go here, and I've been dreaming of going here for a long time. So that's up, and we leave on Thursday. So
Oh, well, we're
coming up.
so thrilled to get you in advance of World Oceans Day, which is a very suitable day to head off for the expedition, I think. If yes, that's going to be so spectacular. Our classes, if you've never heard of leafy sea dragons or never seen a picture of them, look up a leafy sea dragon when you're done. They are the most extraordinary invertebrate, or not invertebrate, it's extraordinary fish on this planet. So do check them out. Ms. Rampersad's class, I'm going to come to you guys. If you have a question for us, you can unmute your mic. I'll come on in. You can share one on behalf of your crew virtually, and you're good to go. Hey, grade ones.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
Hi.
Good morning. So we just want to know, what is the most interesting or amazing thing you found in the water?
Nope.
Oh, wow. I have to, that is actually quite challenging. I have to say, for me personally, as a whale lover, my first encounter with a whale was pretty special. I had been diving for a while, and every place that I went to, I was not seeing any marine life. So I'd go to the most incredible place to see marine manta rays, and there would be none. I'd go to the most incredible place to see sharks, and there'd be none. And this went on for about 2 years where I was not seeing anything. And then one day, all of a sudden, I saw my first whale. And it was so special and so incredible. And it also broke the streak of not seeing animals. And ever since that whale, that one whale, I've had the chance to see lots of really cool marine action. I also have to say, one of my favorite encounters that I've had was not actually in the sea. I was walking at the beach of Western Australia up in a place called Exmouth, which is this teeny tiny little town of 2,000 people. And all of a sudden, the sand was just erupting. And there were hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of baby turtles sprouting out of the sand and racing to the sea. And it was probably one of the most incredible experiences I've ever had. They were baby green turtles, and it was really special.
That is really special. I'm so glad with the whale experience. Every time we have people on that have seen whales, it's just one of the most meaningful things you can have on planet Earth. What kind of whale was it, out of curiosity?
It was a minke dwarf.
Oh, that was my first whale. So on the east coast of Canada, for our Canadian audience in Ontario today, if you go to Gaspé, it's about a 15-hour drive. You can be right in a bay with tons of minke whales around you. They're charismatic and very fast.
It was very fun.
Yeah.
They're very fun.
Quick follow-up too on Exmouth, because it's just so weird to hear that town referenced. Have you been to Shark Bay and the stromatolites that are there? Oh,
yeah.
Okay, we could dive in all day on that, but it's such a rare experience for people to have had, so I'm so glad to hear that. Miss Aiello and St. Isidore Virtual School, if you guys want to flick on your mics, flick on cameras, I can come to you for questions. In fact, Miss Aiello, you just did, so I'll come to you first. If you want to unmute your mic, you're good to go. Hey.
Hi.
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 So, do any of my students have any questions? Anybody? We had one. What's that? Do you have what? I can't hear you. Come here, Malachi. You can come and ask.
Hey, don't
So
be shy.
They're going to come and ask. Go ahead. Here we go.
Hey.
Hi. So, what kind of education did you guys have to do to do this?
Awesome.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very good question. So to do the expedition the way we are, we had to go from open water scuba divers, which means you can go out in the open ocean, you're certified to dive, but you have very limited knowledge on the ocean. Then you can graduate to an advanced diver, which means you can go a little bit deeper, you have a little bit more knowledge, you're a little more skilled. Then you have to become a rescue diver, which means you can save people underwater in case of an emergency. And then we had to become dive masters, which means that you not only can save people underwater, but you have the ability to guide people. So in diving, when you first learn, it's really all about keeping yourself safe And as you start progressing in your education, it's all about keeping others safe, not only yourself. So we had to go up those 4 levels. We also had to get remote first aid certified, which means if you're out in the wilderness, how are you going to protect yourself on land and sea in case something happens? We had to get oxygen certified, meaning we had to be able to administer oxygen to anyone who might be in a diving accident. And then we had to spend a lot of time researching and learning about all the different locations and all the different animals we're going to go try to see, which is a very long process, but very, very fun.
I'm so glad you chose to interpret the question that way, because almost everyone we ever have, we get this question all the time. It goes like, oh, you need this bachelor's degree, you need this. And one of the slides that you highlighted, which is such an important message for kids, is you do not need to be a research PhD biologist to be a person on a marine expedition. You can be a communications professional, you can be a business person, a captain, a cook. There are literally, hundreds of jobs we are going to feature or reference in this broadcast series this week. And so I'm glad it was mentioned the technical skill that you need. Now, on the scuba diving note, because our classes sort of run the gamut of ages today, Patty Bubble Maker is the first step in scuba diving, and you can start doing that at 8. So if you're 8 years old, you can get on the path of becoming a scuba diver. 10, I think you can do open water, which is what I have, which is like, again, the lowest level of on the path to where Andi is. But just, I really encourage you kids to check that out in your lives. It's such an incredible skill to have. Miss Brown's class, Mia has a question apparently. So I'm going to head to Miami for you grade 8s. Come on in and take us away. Hey.
What precautions do you guys take when you guys go diving with animals?
Nice. Andi, did you catch that?
I only heard a little bit.
Yeah. What precautions do you take when you're diving with animals? You highlighted, all these big species that you're checking out. Is there anything that you need to worry about or check before you go?
That is a really awesome question. Thank you for asking. Every time you get in the water, any dive you ever go on, you are briefed before. And the briefing happens by people who are local experts. So all the partners that we're teaming up with on the Edges of Earth, they have spent years and years and years studying the marine life in this specific area. So they're the experts, we're not. And we listen to their advice, no questions asked. And so in that briefing, they walk us through the types of animals we might see, what happens when we encounter those animals, how we get out of trouble if something goes wrong, and how we can be respectful of the environment as well. And we take all of that advice incredibly seriously. Sometimes when you're underwater, you can encounter an animal that you weren't expecting, and you have to stay really, really calm. But the number one rule in scuba diving is you don't touch animals. You stay as far away as you can without interfering with the natural process. And when in any sort of danger whatsoever, you just stay calm and follow the training and the guidance from the locals that you've received. So it's a pretty important step in the process to be respectful of nature and listen to the people who are experts.
I'm so glad you phrased it that way. Again, even with all the expertise that you have on your team, you don't know everything. You certainly don't know things when you go to local and new areas for you. So that's something that really applies to no matter what expedition you're going on or what our students are going on in terms of tourism, travel, anywhere you're going on planet Earth. Listen to the local experts. By the way, just because I know that question is related to sharks in some way, but we get so many, are you going to be attacked by sharks questions on our broadcast? Andi, when you're in the water with sharks, are you deathly afraid?
No, never.
Sharks.
I'll tell you. Sorry. Jesse, go ahead.
No, go for it. Tell the story.
I was going to say that I had an experience where I went to Fiji and I dove with 40 bull sharks, which are considered some of the more dangerous sharks in the world. And it was one of the most peaceful experiences I've ever had. They were just swimming around us. They're not worried about us. They're not interested in us. And especially when you're scuba diving, you're supposed to be part of nature and you're supposed to be keeping your distance and being really mindful. Like I mentioned before, I've swam with countless sharks and I have never, ever, ever once been afraid. And we're about to go to South Australia and swim with great whites. So, you can imagine my stance on that.
Fantastic. I'm so glad we get this every time we do an ocean broadcast. It's a theme we're going to keep harping on throughout the entirety of the week. One of my favorite stories in this regard, they filmed drone footage of the Los Angeles beaches, and there's basically constantly great whites around the swimmers and surfers all day long. They want nothing to do with people. It's really rare to be in a position where a shark is likely to hurt you, and most times it's the person's fault for harassing the shark in some way, which speaks to Andi's earlier point. So great question, Mia. St. Isidore Virtual School, I'll bring you on camera. You can ask this question live. You don't need to just type it in the chat if you'd like, but welcome in virtual school. Hey.
Super. Can you hear us?
Oh yeah, perfectly.
Oh, fantastic. So I have a young innovator in my class who it does a lot of cool scientific inquiry. And her question is, if you could create an app that would help our ocean in any way, what would that app do to help our oceans? Suggestions, I'm sure she'll get right on it.
I love that question a lot because that's actually what I do professionally. So I'm really happy to hear it. And you should have that student contact me if they can, because I always love having this conversation. I am not actually interested in creating any apps myself because I know of an app that's being created right now and it's in beta. So it's called Voyager, and it's being produced by the president of the Hong Kong chapter of the Explorers Club. And he and I recently connected, and he really, really impressed me with his incredible venture. And I'm having the chance to personally learn more about it this week, so I'm really excited. But the high level premise of it is that it's making exploration and expedition more accessible to many. So the Voyager app is going to showcase people all around the world, similar to what our expedition is doing, but making that social network between explorers possible, and then being able to share knowledge and go on expeditions together and bringing more people into the exploration area. It's pretty exciting what they're building. So it's spelled a little differently. It's I'll drop the link so you all can see it, but it's really special.
Fantastic. I've done 1,500 broadcasts. I've never had that question. So thank you to our Isidore Virtual School crew. That was awesome. We're going to head to Dolson Public School. Mr. Green's class has a great question on YouTube. And then we're going to do another round with all our live classes because, Andy, we are like whipping through this Q&A. We have so much time.
Sweet.
So Mr. Green's class wants to know, what's the garbage like in the oceans? We're always told there's lots of garbage. Is that true? Is that your experience when you're out on the water?
Yes. This is incredible. So remember I mentioned that we went to Malaysia for one of our trial legs of the expedition. We went because we heard that one of the largest dive operators in the area, and the only dive operator on the entire archipelago of 50 islands that's focused on ocean conservation, they had a waste management program. And I didn't really process what that meant until we arrived on site. Now, this is a teeny tiny little island. It's absolutely tiny. It's a little speck on the map, okay? And when we got there, we're looking at some of the most beautiful dive sites we've ever seen in the world. That's on the right-hand side of the island. And when you start moving to the left-hand side of the island, it is covered in trash. And the reason why this happens is there's a couple. One, waste management in some island nations is really hard. There's not the infrastructure on those islands to manage all of the trash. Trash is coming through from lots of different islands or lots of different areas and congregating on beaches and on shorelines. Some communities don't really know how to manage their trash, so it's easy to just throw it in the ocean with no regard. Tourists come, they throw their trash in the ocean, or they might not even realize what they're doing. And there's so many different reasons why this happens, but the amount of trash that we saw was pretty unbelievable. And we saw children swimming in the trash because they didn't know any better. And so the team at our local partner, they clean up those beaches and the ocean every single day. They have an entire team that does it. And then they invite their guests who are visiting to just go diving with them to also clean up. And it's a really big community effort and it's really special. But we are seeing this all over the world, every island nation, every country. It's pretty significant. And a lot of the work that we're doing is going to these places to document what's happening when it comes to waste management and the teams that are fixing it.
Fantastic. We spend most of September every year talking about marine plastic. It's such a big issue. We found plastic on the bottom of the deepest point of the oceans, on the top of Mount Everest. We have found it on the most remote islands in the Pacific Ocean. We find it in the air, small particles at times. So it's a huge issue. It's one that fortunately there's no politics around. No one looks at a beach covered in plastic and goes, great. So we all recognize it's such an issue. And one of the things that we're doing in this broadcast series too this week is featuring some really amazing scientists working to curb that plastic, whether it's big plastics littering beaches or microplastics in the oceans as well. So continue checking it out on YouTube, and hopefully there's something to learn even more on this topic if you're really keen on it. Thank you, Andy, too, for the Voyager app names. I put it up on the screen. I've shared it with our YouTube classes as well. If you want to check out more of that, it looks very cool, insofar as I could check it in our 30 seconds of question. Andy, we're going to do another round because we've got all the time in the world, which is great.
Perfect.
Class, I'm coming back to you. Share that question live. Unmute. Hey. Oh, unmute your mic though. There you go.
Sorry, I'm trying to have both mics going. Seth wanted to ask you himself. He has a question. Seth, can you unmute and then see if we can make this happen?
My question is, there are different sharks.
How many different sharks have you seen?
How many different sharks have I seen?
Yeah.
That's a great question. I need to think about that for a second. Let's go back to the beginning. I've seen a white tip shark. They swim kind of near the surface. They're pretty easy to see even on snorkels. Same with black tip sharks, the reef sharks. I've seen them too. I've seen the oceanic white tip shark, which is a really, really, really big, monstrous shark that you can find all over the world, but I saw them in Egypt. I have seen a tiger shark. I've had a chance to actually tag tiger sharks on a research vessel, which was pretty exciting. I have seen a lemon shark. I have seen bull sharks. I have seen whale sharks. Yes, I've seen lots of whale sharks. I've seen, let me think, what else? Oh, I've seen lots of wobbegong sharks. I've seen leopard sharks. I've seen, the list goes on. I'll stop it there. But the one that I'm most excited to see of them all is the great white. So I'm really looking forward to this. And just to give you a little idea of what swimming with great whites is like, there's a lot of different ways to do it. But the way I'm going to do it is where I drop to the very bottom of the ocean and I sit there very peacefully and quietly and wait for them to circle. Now, there's also another method in getting sharks to come near you, which is called chumming the water or dropping food in the water for sharks to come. And it's not a good practice. Some people do it in their dive operators and in research. But for us, we like to let them come naturally because it's nature and we don't want to disturb the natural process. So this dive expedition is going to be all about waiting really patiently for those great white sharks to come and staying as still and as calm as possible and letting them do their show.
Very, very cool. You mentioned some of the coolest sharks on Earth too, like a wobbegong, which everyone should also check out. I'll put up the name in the chat in a minute for everybody. But I hope you have the most wonderful experience with great whites there. Just one of the coolest species on planet Earth. We're going to take 3 more questions because time flies when you're having fun. We are actually nearing the end of the broadcast now. So Miss Aiello, I'm coming to you first. I'll take 1 from you, 2 Miss McLaughlin's class, and then St. Isidore, you can wrap us up after that. Miss Aiello, come on back in. Hey.
What's a goal you have for a future expedition?
Ooh.
Oh. If I could live my life exploring every single day out in the remote wilderness, I would. I have a very distinct goal. So going on this expedition for 2 years is meant for us to prove a really important point. And I think I've mentioned it a few times in this discussion, but spreading the good news. So we see a lot of that bad news about our ocean and our planet, but there's a lot of positive wins. And my hope would be to help other people realize that there's lots of different career paths, ways of entering the space and ways of making impact so that we can create more business, more conservation efforts, more marine protected areas, and really being able to open people's eyes to the possibilities. So after this, my hope is to move very firmly into the coaching, mentoring, and education space where we're bringing more people along the journey to make exploration more accessible and to help open the doors for new career paths and opportunities in ocean conservation and climate action.
That's a pretty beautiful answer, Andy. I like that very much. And what a cool question, Miss Aiello's class. All right, I'm going to try and take quite a few from YouTube if I can, and we'll do like a rapid fire round before we wrap up with St. Isidore. So, have you seen beluga whales? Yes?
Oh, okay. Well, beluga whales are my #1 favorite whale in the sea, and I have not, but we're going to Alaska and Greenland to try to see them.
So, and if you ever, just as because we've had the chance to do it with Polar Bears International, Churchill, Manitoba has tons of them and they're all around your boat. You can have like 100 belugas right there. So if you ever,
I know.
new connections.
We're desperate. We're so desperate to go, but we can't make it work on this expedition. But next time.
That can be Miss Aiello's additional answer to the question. For the belugas, have you seen a blue whale or a killer whale? And if you have, what did you do?
Yes, I've seen a blue whale. I had the chance of seeing a blue whale in Iceland, and it was the best day of my life. I actually started hysterically crying because I was so excited, but I did not see it in the water. I saw it on a whale watching boat where I was learning about ecotourism, and it looked like a monster. It was the biggest thing I've ever seen.
You've probably seen the David Attenborough thing where he comes to the blue whale and he has the exact same reaction. He's like, it's a blue whale. It's like the biggest animal ever to exist on Earth. Like none of the dinosaurs come close to the size of a blue whale. They're such a special creature. So I love that question. And then
the orca whale, and to answer that part about orcas, we actually just saw them only a couple weeks ago. So it's pretty special. You don't get in the water with orca whales. So again, we were on a boat learning about ecotourism from a whale watching perspective. But hopefully when we go to Norway, we'll get the chance to swim with them.
I really encourage our audience to check out Frozen Planet 2. It's one of the latest BBC series, and the way that orcas are depicted to hunt in that is one of the coolest things in all of nature ever. So just check out orcas. They're the apex predator on planet Earth, and they have the coolest skull of any animal ever, I think. The most metal thing that's ever come out of the natural world. Last but not least from YouTube, what should you do if you see a dead animal in the ocean?
That's a really good question. Nothing. If you see a dead animal in the ocean, it's nature taking its course, and you don't touch it and you don't interact with it and you let it just stay. I had an interaction where I was in California in Monterey, and sea lions were eating mola mola, which is a very fun round fish. They're very special. They're very cool. And we felt so bad for them because we saw these dead mola molas, but it's a natural process. It's the circle of life, and we're not meant to interact with it.
Yep. I'm so glad we got that question. And thank you guys. Ms. McLaughlin's class. Amazing questions on YouTube. St. Isidore, I'm coming back to you for Haley's question. You can share it with us live because it's more fun that way. So come on in and take us away.
Okay, so I teach virtually from home, so I have to read Haley's question for you. But Haley wants to know, what can we do to help protect our animals in the ocean other than not littering? Because we're all committed to not littering, but is there anything else we can do to help our animals?
My favorite question.
That's a really good question, and there's so many ways to answer that. I think the most important thing is getting educated on all the different pathways, and there's so many. It's the food that we eat, it's the products that we buy, it's the operators that we participate with. So for example, you really want to be focusing on traveling with ecotourism in mind. So every vacation that you go on or every trip that you take, just making sure that you're picking the right operators. That's a lot of what our expedition's about. But even down to eating the right foods, where it's coming from. If you're a seafood eater and you're buying fish in bulk, that could be a little dangerous. It also is about the clothes that you wear and the way in which you consume. Fashion is a really big issue for our planet. So there's so much waste from clothes, for example. So if you are just buying sustainable products or wearing the same thing lots of times like we do, you can definitely help. But I think the biggest and most important thing is finding ways of getting involved using your skills. So as you grow up and move through your education and your schooling experience, no matter what you decide to do, no matter what career you have, you could be an artist, you could be a photographer, you could be a marketer, you could be an accountant, it doesn't matter. Finding ways of getting involved and working with companies that are really future focused, that are planet focused. That is probably the number one thing I can say you should do if you want to help save our ocean and protect our planet, because your contributions throughout your career are going to be really important. For example, and I'll keep this really brief, there are a lot of really incredible companies all over the world that are very, very large, that are focusing on how to do better for our planet. Find out who those people are and go align with them and work with them and build careers with them, or create your own business and have it be 100% dedicated to the ocean, or finding ways of giving back.
Andi, that is a beautiful and detailed answer. I love it. For our classes, especially in the seafood angle, Ocean Wise in Canada and the Monterey Bay Aquarium have really spectacular sustainable seafood programs. If you want to check out if the fish that you're getting in a restaurant or in a grocery store are spectacular and are harvested in a sustainable way, check out those resources below. We partner with both of them for many years now. And most of all, when you're done this broadcast, this is only a snippet of everything that Andi and her team are up to, check out edgesofearth.com. All our social media programming platforms are there. You can follow up, share additional questions if you're keen. Andi, this has been such a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us to kick off our Epic Oceans Week. And I mean, on behalf of all our classes, some of them have had to go, some of them are virtual schools. I'll say goodbye with them in a second, but I just want to say best of luck on the expedition. I hope you have a wonderful time leading on Thursday with the great whites and the sea dragons and all that other amazing stuff. And keep up the amazing work. This has been so
Thank you. We'll be back. We'll have more stories to share. It was so nice meeting you all. Thank you for your time. And find me on LinkedIn if you have any questions and you want to talk. I'm always available.
Amazing. Andi, I'll bring in our teachers to join me in saying farewell. Ms. Rampersad, St. Isidore Virtual